Curious Calico here, checking in for my first session of therapy. I do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. Today I would like to briefly discuss the question, can we find our way? We meaning the black men and women of today who currently appear at odds with one another. In other words, will the day ever come where both sides can honestly agree to focus on more positive, solution-based views for the greater good of our people as a collective? Now that I've provided my own personal clarification of the question, I would also like to take the time to preface the rest of this message with the following statement. I am not here to intentionally preach or judge. The reason I say intentionally is due to the fact I am not perfect, and although the perfectionist inside of me would love to believe otherwise, perfect, I will never be. Hence the reason I've decided to start this personal journey to ultimately discover a better version of myself. The sole purpose for my content is to help individuals who would also like to become the best version of themselves. I attempt to offer guidance by providing key factors or situations to consider prior to arriving at a key decision in your life in which you will ultimately have to make as well as be held accountable for. Everyone has to walk their own path. I'm just here to help in any way that I can. With that out of the way, let's dive into this particular topic, shall we? Now, I do understand there are several groups on YouTube that feel such a topic as this one can appear at surface value to be a complete waste of time, simply due to the fact they may have absolutely no faith in the other group's ability to become accountable and actually own up to their contributions to the chaos we experience today. And believe me when I tell you, I am not here to challenge that stance. Most people in today's society are clearly aware that both genders appear to have their extreme groups out there, who seem to enjoy complaining, or in other words, focusing energy towards the weaknesses of one another. Nonetheless, as life has continued and I have broadened my views as far as the YouTube sector is concerned, I could not help but to pick up on something very refreshing in my humble opinion. And that particular something is hope. Hope. Curious. Why do you say this? Please give me a moment to explain. Now, yes, I will be the first to agree. There is a great chance for you to be discovered as well as heavily followed on YouTube, if you wish to take part in what some may refer to as the bashing campaign, which tends to surface from time to time in the YouTube community. No disagreement from me on that point. It is what it is. With that said, take a step back and ask yourself how many times you caught yourself saying, enough already, or witnessed others putting these bashers, for lack of a better word, in a particular box, no matter how much sense they may have been speaking at the time, simply because their views at that particular time may have come off as problematic versus being solution-based. Now, in all fairness, these type of views are typically expressed by individuals who tend to be not as familiar with the so-called basher's overall portfolio of work. I know personally, I have finally witnessed more than enough of the negative energy being thrown around by our people. And in my own particular way, I've decided to try and bring back some of the positive energy to our people. If nothing else comes from this journey, I can look back and say I honestly tried to make a difference, rather than utilizing my time to contribute to the next up-and-coming negative gossip-like topic that attempts to spread among and further misdirect our people. Again, in all fairness, I am new to YouTube, so for any individuals currently listening who have taken the time to ask themselves, what qualifies this guy to offer personal advice to anyone? I would respectfully take the time to answer that particular question with 2 words. Absolutely nothing. Now, if you care to further question me after that response and ask, why do I feel I have something to offer? I would then proceed to say everyone has something to offer, if they should decide to do so. I have personally grown and learned so much about myself due to many of the content creators encompassed in YouTube today. And moving forward, I view any contributions I provide simply as me giving back to a community that has always been there for me during my times of need. Since I'm now at risk of running way off of topic during my first podcast, let's get back to this hope thing I previously mentioned. I did previously touch on the fact I have now decided to broaden my own personal views as well, as I have and will continue to grow in the YouTube community. Now, prior to doing so, I must admit, most of my studies revolved strictly around red pill content, which, as many of us know, focuses on the harsh truths of reality as far as feminine nature is concerned. Strangely enough, although the majority of this content had a tendency to align with most of my current thought processes, I did notice at times the general focus placed more on warning men of these behaviors, rather than explaining why these behaviors currently exist. Needless to say, I began to dig deeper. And to make a long story short, only after putting in tons of time researching, as well as cross-referencing large sums of information ranging anywhere from readily available public YouTube creators' content to more low-key hidden esoteric types of wisdom, that I was finally comfortable enough to develop my own personal code of conduct for myself, as well as a list of standards any woman would have to satisfy before truly being accepted into my own personal boundary. Again, I reiterate, my personal code of conduct, as well as my personal standards for women, were not truly actualized until after I recognized the need to step back and perform an honest evaluation of myself in terms of the principles of manhood. It was only after facing as well as owning some of my own personal challenges that I then began to truly mature, further pushing myself into a self-actualization type of phase, which then, in my opinion, further propelled me to make the conscious decision to completely re-educate myself on masculine truth versus social programming. Now that I've shared a little bit about myself, let's get into some real talk. Although I do not consider myself a MGTOW, otherwise known as men going their own way, for the folks out there not familiar with that particular acronym, I will always subscribe to a philosophy that in so many words states, it is in a man's best interest to be by himself and focus on self-improvement, rather than force himself to deal with a woman who does not have his best interest in mind. In other words, I do believe there is truth in the statement that a man, not in tune with his true masculinity, runs a risk every day of being potentially sabotaged by a woman who does not share his vision and therefore may have no intention of following his particular agenda. In fact, most men in the manosphere believe such a man is only seen as a simp to the majority of women in society today, no matter what excuses these males attempt to provide for clearly being out of touch with their masculinity. Just to keep things balanced, as men we must admit there are plenty of guys out there who are clearly not fit to lead anyone at this point in their lives. But as far as I'm concerned, I have hope that with the proper influence, one day, most of these men can not only be re-educated, but also groomed to become some of the most influential forces our society has ever experienced. In other words, I feel that once men collectively have elevated themselves to their best versions, any and all things from that point will begin to work themselves out. In terms of the unnecessary drama the media loves to showcase today on mainstream television, one day men will truly understand the power we possess. That day may occur once an opportunity is presented and we as men agree to join forces for a cause greater than each of our individual concerns. Now, I will say, with the clarification provided thus far, I would not attempt to disagree with anyone who feels this content has not yet proven to be solution-based in their opinion. Again, I admit being new at this, and my structure will hopefully improve as I become more familiar with the delivery process. But in the meantime, stay with me as I attempt to drive this point home. I felt it was important to briefly touch on my research as it relates to red pill knowledge, before proceeding to speak in detail on my opinion as it relates to the state of Black relationships moving forward. Hopefully, my brief introduction will help separate myself from some of the individuals out there whom, from my experience, do not spread around the accountability between both genders in an intellectually honest manner. Now, personally, I do feel the best thing for a Black man to grow old with is a Black woman. Should the stars align, placing a thorough Black man and woman in a close enough proximity, which then allows them to find one another, fall in love, and continue to help build this philosophy known as Black love. Yes, this is a wonderful and beautiful thing when it does occur from time to time. Some have even posed the argument this Black love used to be much more prevalent in the past, when certain values appear to hold more weight in our communities. Unfortunately, as said many times over in the Black manosphere, to find such a union between a man and woman is possible, but you're going to have to put in the effort to find it, and once you've done so, you will have to remain disciplined and ensure during the vetting process a necessary amount of courting as well as introspection has occurred on both sides. This particular screening process, which is almost non-existent today, is useful when it comes down to confirming both parties are in a good place prior to starting their journey in which each of them hopes to move forward with positive results and create something special with one another. Now, although I am a firm believer that a woman only has the ability to complement a man and is not required for the completion of a man, I do recognize the importance of a good woman and all of the positive tangibles she can bring to a worthy man's life. From my experience, a woman with the ability to recognize her role and play her position accordingly will always be useful to a man of means in terms of helping him achieve a particular level of success, which may have been much more difficult to accomplish without her feminine presence providing him that additional sense of purpose and honor. So I've said all of this to say, I do see the positives involved with Black men and women continuing to keep up the fight for Black love, but I don't feel someone should necessarily limit themselves to Black love. If they can clearly find what they're searching for somewhere else. Black men don't own Black women, and Black women don't own Black men. More importantly than race, in my opinion, I believe there needs to be a common purpose or vision both individuals not only share, but also honestly agree to work towards. If there's any type of building or progress expected to surface from their union. By now, I'm sure you've noticed, my intention was not to directly answer the question, can we find our way? My true intention was an attempt to get a positive, thought-provoking dialogue started revolving around this particular question or scenario. With that said, thanks again for checking in. If you found this content useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you don't mind, please leave your comments below and let me know if you have any suggestions for improving this channel. Until the next time, remain curious, and it has been a pleasure growing with you.